Hello and welcome to this session of the new digital and social selling training, Writing Effective Sales Messages. This session has three main objectives. Explain what makes a successful message stand out from the rest, share best practices to create effective sales messages, and help you to articulate an elevator pitch that can be compelling enough to trigger a positive answer from top executives working in your target companies. Right? So let's get started. Now we are at the last stage of the social prospecting process. Finally, we are entitled and ready to send a sales message to our prospects articulating our value proposition to explain how we can help them to solve any issue that they may have or to improve something they already do today. A sales message is the central persuasive message that intrigues, informs, persuades, calls to action, and closes the sale. Not every sales message will make a direct sale, but the goal in terms of the social selling process remains, which is achieved to get a face-to-face meeting with the right audience at your customer with enough time for lead qualification. Certainly, this is the most difficult step to fulfill because it requires applying a prospecting technique consisting in writing a short, specific business value statement to engage with executives. This is what we call elevator pitch. This message should be compelling enough to trigger a positive response from the executive. Sales messages are often discussed in terms of reason versus emotion, but the truth is that every message should cover both elements, emotional and rational. If your sales message focuses exclusively on reason with cold, hard facts and nothing but the facts, you may appeal to some audience, of course, but certainly not to the majority. Buyers make purchase decisions on emotion as well as reason, and even if they have researched all the relevant facts about competing products, the decision may still come down to impulse, emotion, and desire. On the other hand, if your sales message focuses exclusively on emotion, with little or no substance, it may not be taken seriously, may not appear to have credibility, and therefore the message will be dismissed. So, what's the trick? In general, appeals to emotion awake curiosity and get our attention, but are the reason and facts the ones which drives the final decision? Your sales message will compete with hundreds of other messages and you want it to stand out. One effective way to do that is to make sure your value proposition and introduction clearly state how the buyer will benefit. We need to make sure explain the reason why they should meet you and take your product into account. So explain clearly if your product will make them look good, if your product or service is going to improve their jobs, maybe it will save time or money. I mean, what is the specific business impact for their business? Regardless of the product or service, what the audience is going to look first in your message is what is in need for them. A real benefit is what the buyer gains with the purchase, and that should be central to your sales message. Your sales message should clearly communicate the benefits of your product or service, but you should not speak about your product. It's different. It's not about specs or functionality, but it's about what benefit it brings to the customers. Let's start discussing some best practices that you can consider while you create your sales messages. First, and very important, humanize your message. Use any of the sales triggers found in your listening process to open up the conversation, and let's include the emotional touch in your message. Remember that a sales trigger can be any personal event, quote, or any information related to your prospect that can help you to break the ice by personalizing the message. Once ready, you can start articulating your value proposition. You may start with your greatest benefit and try to show the value as fast as possible. Use it in the headline, in the subject line, as a caption, or maybe as an attention statement, because audiences tend to remember the information from the beginning and end of any message, but they have less recall about the middle points. That's why we suggest to make your first step count by highlighting the best win first, and actually, it may not be a good idea to use more than 2 benefits in the same message. Keep in mind that if you do good, you will earn the chance to have further conversation with your prospect where the other benefits can be explained. Remember that this message is probably the first approach to your buyer. Therefore, don't rush it. Take baby steps, one thing at a time. Promote, inform, persuade, and try to explain the killer benefit that you can deliver, but don't ask too much too soon. For example, by asking your prospect to read a blog, to watch a long video, or maybe to download a white paper to read. At this point of the process, customers only want to know what they will get from you before deciding spending more time on you. We will have more time later to exchange documents and to exchange more assets with them. Avoid confusion and keep it simple. You want a positive answer from your prospect, and if you confuse the audience with too much information, too many options, steps to consider, or many products or services, more likely you are going to be ignored or to receive a "no thank you, not interested" as a defensive response. The buyer don't want to be pushed, even less harassed, or simply try to don't make any early commitment or a mistake with an unknown person. Know your audience. The more background research you can do on your buyer, the better you can anticipate their specific wants and needs and individualize your sales message to meet them. Lead with emotion and follow with reason. Gain the audience's attention with honesty, novelty, and a warm personal approach. Then follow with the specific facts that establish your credibility by providing succinct information about how the product or service delivers that specific benefit that you just mentioned. Another point to remember is that each executive is driven to perform against an executive charter that is unique to their role and responsibility. Therefore, it is critical to always speak in the language that an executive would speak instead of technical language or acronyms that they may not understand. This is very important. For example, if you speak to the CFO, rather than use technical language, try to use financial language, which makes more sense to this type of executive. Your messages should be capable to explain the specific business impact on the line of business budget or the financial return for the customer. Executives want to know what happens to their money if they commit it to you. Another suggestion is to include information that can help to mitigate the risk that executives may feel by considering non-budget new projects. For example, customer references, testimonials, best practices, all these statements of value that you have delivered previously will make your prospect more receptive to your message. And finally, the call to action. Think that there are very few things that executives are prepared to give you when they receive your message. So try to ask only for what you can get in that moment. And as I explained before, don't ask too much too soon. Don't rush it. Maybe you could ask for a referral to a decision maker in the organization, or even it could be just extra time for a meeting. Very important. If you successfully got a referral, don't forget to have a different pitch for every executive. Don't repeat the message because every executive and persona profile have different ways to communicate and understand the value that you can offer. As you can see, personalizing carefully your messages is way more effective and efficient than bombing nonsense messages to people that will take 2 seconds to delete them without even reading them. Maybe personalizing sounds complex and time-consuming, but believe me, it is not if you follow the right process and the best practice considerations that we just mentioned. Actually, what really is a waste of time is keep on sending generic messages that nobody reads. Nobody answers, and even less that drives you to an in-person business conversation. Personalizing is key to succeed. And to make this task easier, certainly you can create a wise template with enough flexibility for personalization that can help you to have two extra wins. First, certain level of automation to speed up your messaging process and keep your message humanized and personal enough to stand out from the rest and to be considered and trigger that positive response that we expect from our prospects. In this case, you could create a similar template as the one that you can see on the screen. It basically summarizes all the elements that we just explained. In the first line, in 100% of the cases, you should include personal information coming from your customers. I mean the sales triggers found from your social listening practice. This information is the one that will give the emotional human difference to your message. Next is where you will articulate your value proposition. Usually, it has a short intro next to the wow factor needed to awake interest from your prospects. Usually, this is the rational piece of your message. Finally, the call to action. Just as a reminder, ask only for what your prospects can give you in the moment when they read your message. Keep it short, succinct, be straightforward and clear in what your potential customer can get, and more important, make it personal and unique. If you follow the best practice, more likely you will increase the response rate to your sales messages. SAP partners using these recommendations have about 20% response rate that usually leads to a face-to-face meeting to discuss business with customers. Thank you for attending this session. Don't forget to visit the social selling page at Partner Edge portal to get updated training and information that will help you improve your digital selling skills. Let's keep in touch and see you in the next chapter.